What if I told you there are words capable of activating dormant codes inside you? Not motivational quotes. Vibrational words. Ancient keys. Alchemical formulas so powerful that when understood and applied, they can completely transform your reality. Sounds exaggerated? Then tell me this. Why do you feel that emptiness, even when everything seems to be in place? Why, among achieved goals, bills paid, and compliments received, does a question still persist? Is there something more? Maybe you've never said it out loud. Maybe it just feels like a discomfort, a silence between thoughts, a longing for something you don't even know what it is. But that's the sign. That's the calling, and it doesn't come with thunder or prophecies. It shows up as restlessness, as a strange boredom, as a sudden curiosity for things no one around you understands. When that happens, you're not losing control. You're starting to remember. Because every old soul, sooner or later, hears this call, and when it comes, there's no turning back. You try to go back to your routine, but it doesn't fit anymore. You try to distract yourself, but something pulls you back. You start noticing too many coincidences to be just coincidence. Dreams that return, numbers that repeat, words that find you at the exact moment. That's not random. That's the universe whispering the codes, and today, you're going to understand what they are. The verb is the beginning of creation. The word has power. What you name, you create. Maybe you got this far, thinking alchemy was just a medieval attempt to turn lead into gold, or that Hermeticism was just a collection of cryptic sayings attributed to some guy named Hermes Trismegistus. But what few people know is that behind those ancient words and mysterious symbols, there's a living map of the human soul, a spiritual technology encoded in symbolic language left by sages who knew the secrets of creation. Hermeticism is more than a philosophy. It's a science of consciousness. It tells us that everything in the universe is mind, that what is above is equal to what is below, that the visible is a reflection of the invisible, that the outer world is just the expression of what vibrates within us. And if that's true, then transforming reality is, first and foremost, transforming yourself. That is alchemy, not the one with laboratories and smoking flasks, but inner alchemy, which seeks to transmute the raw being into the awakened being, from the limited ego to the awakened spirit. And that's where the 4 words come in. They are more than spiritual advice. They are the 4 verbs of the great work. Eliphas Levi, a 19th century Hermetic mage, codified this structure in his book Dogma and Ritual of High Magic. There, he didn't create something new. He translated, he reorganized a wisdom that was already between the lines of the Corpus Hermeticum, the Emerald Tablet, and even in Gnostic and alchemical texts of the Renaissance. These verbs aren't abstract, they're operative. They are active principles of spiritual transmutation. Those who know them intellectually study, those who live them transform. Because true alchemy isn't about changing the outer world, but about setting the ego on fire, distilling the soul, crystallizing the essence. It's polishing the raw spirit until it reveals the gold of awakened consciousness. And each of these verbs represents a crucial stage in that process. They are inscribed in the symbol of the Sphinx, which represents the soul in balance itself. The human mind is to know. The spiritual vision is to will. The courage of the heart is to dare. And the deep silence of the soul is to keep silent. These 4 are the pillars of practical Hermeticism, the hidden structure that supports the entire esoteric edifice. In alchemy, these verbs connect to the inner processes of the great work, the burning of the old ego, the purification of emotions, the elevation of the mind, and the final integration of the spirit. Each verb is like an alchemical reagent, a transformative principle that acts not in the physical world, but in the invisible laboratory of the self. To know, to will, to dare, to keep silent. These are the keys. And now that they've been handed to you, let's unlock them one by one and dive into their true power. To know, the bridge between knowledge and wisdom. Here's a truth nobody told you. Knowing isn't about accumulating. Knowing isn't about reading every spirituality book out there, jotting down every concept, memorizing every symbol like it's school material, because information without integration is just dead weight. Real knowledge isn't what you read, it's what pierces through you. It's what transforms you when you're no longer trying to understand, but allowing yourself to feel. The kind of knowing that Hermeticism points to isn't intellectual, it's vibrational. In Kabbalah, there's a sphere called Da'at, which many people don't even officially count on the Tree of Life map. It's not there like the others. It's hidden, invisible. And why? Because Da'at represents the gap between knowledge and wisdom. What you know in your mind only becomes wisdom when it passes through your heart and takes shape in your actions. What bridges that gap? Experience, awareness, the silence between the noise, the mistake that taught you more than 100 pages of any book. And if you want a real-life example of this, look at Solomon, the king who could have asked for anything: wealth, fame, power over nations. But you know what he asked for? Understanding, clarity, wisdom to judge fairly. And that's why, according to ancient accounts, he became not only the wisest, but also the most prosperous. Because where there's wisdom, abundance flows naturally. Wisdom is the foundation that holds the temple. Without it, any achievement eventually crumbles. Knowing is like lighting a torch in the darkness of ignorance, but the flame doesn't last on theory alone. It needs spiritual oxygen. It needs you to look at the world with clear eyes, without the dirty lenses of inherited beliefs, other people's opinions, or fear-based filters. Knowing is seeing patterns in chaos. It's finding lessons in conflict. It's looking inward, even when everything in you wants to run. In alchemy, this phase is compared to the stage of nigredo, putrefaction, the symbolic death of what you thought you knew, so that from the ashes of ignorance, a new vision can be born. Knowledge doesn't come before the darkness. It's born right in the middle of it. It's built when you allow yourself not to know, when you question, unlearn, deconstruct. Only then can you reach the philosophical gold of wisdom. Hermeticism has always pointed to this. Hermes Trismegistus wrote, "Ignorance is the greatest evil, and self-knowledge is the greatest good." But self-knowledge isn't an idea. It's a silent revelation that only happens when you dive honestly into your own shadow. When you stop repeating what others say and start listening to what your soul has to say. And maybe this is the most forgotten key to true knowledge. It's humble. It doesn't need to shout, prove, or convince. It just is. It shows up in posture, in a look, in the quality of one's presence. A person who truly knows can transform a room without saying a word, because their field vibrates on another frequency. And that doesn't come from the ego. That comes from being connected to what truly matters. To will, the will that creates realities. Now that the torch has been lit, that the flame of knowing has illuminated the inner cave of consciousness, something starts to move. It's subtle, but intense. It's like something inside you begins to pulse, wanting to express itself, to break free from stillness, from passive contemplation. It's will awakening. And I'm not talking about desire. Don't confuse the two. Desire is what changes all the time. Today you want something, tomorrow you don't. Desire is emotion mixed with impulse, often fueled by fear, by lack, by comparison. But true will, that's different. The kind of will we're talking about here isn't the will of the ego. It's the soul's silent calling. It's that will that doesn't scream, but vibrates. That doesn't need applause or validation. That rises from within, like a wordless certainty. Once you access that will, there's no ignoring it. It pierces you like an arrow. And no matter how long it takes, how many obstacles show up, or what people say around you, it stays right there, untouched. True will doesn't need permission. It's the original breath that put you on this planet. It's what reminds you that you're not here just to survive, but to express something unique, something only you can bring into existence. In Hermeticism, this inner force is seen as a creative power, the same power that moves the stars, the cycles of nature, the silent dance of cosmic laws. That's why Hermes Trismegistus said what is within is reflected without. Because when your will is aligned with the core of your being, it echoes throughout the entire universe. Will becomes command, vibration, creation. In alchemy, that will is the hidden fire, the heat that warms the hermetic vessel. Without it, there's no transmutation. The lead of unconsciousness doesn't become spiritual gold without that flame. And here we're not talking about wanting a new car, a better job, a perfect relationship. Those are fleeting desires. Alchemical will is what pulls you home, what draws you toward your mission, even if you can't put it into words yet. It acts like an invisible compass pointing to the soul's true north. This will is what separates those who awaken from those who just dream. Because the world is full of people who know, who understand, who repeat beautiful phrases, but don't move. Because they're missing this force. They're missing this will that really burns, that blazes in the chest like a calling that can't be silenced. Have you ever felt it? That deep intuition that there's something you need to do, live, manifest, and only you can do it. That's what we're talking about. And when that will awakens, nothing else satisfies. You can try to distract yourself, try to go back to the old life, follow the script that was written for you. But something in you has already been touched, and there's no pretending you didn't hear it. That's real alchemy. Not the one that transforms objects, but the one that transforms direction. Because when your will is aligned with your essential self, with your higher self, with what you came here to do, everything else starts to make sense. The puzzle pieces fit together. The coincidences stop being random. You realize the universe wasn't against you. It was just waiting for you to remember who you are. To dare, the courage to manifest. But wanting, no matter how real it is, still isn't enough. Because even when your heart is screaming, even when your soul is begging to be lived, there's still a gatekeeper standing at the door of change: fear. And this is where the third verb comes in: to dare. To dare is to move through fear with a trembling body. It's taking action even with doubt pounding in your head. It's standing in front of the unknown and saying, I might not know what's waiting for me, but I refuse to stay stuck. How many times have you known exactly what you needed to do? You felt the direction, had the clarity, experienced that moment when everything inside you said, go. But you didn't. You froze. You overthought it, waited too long, asked advice from people who've never walked your path, shrunk in the face of your own greatness. That happens to almost everyone, because knowing and wanting are still internal. But daring requires flesh. It requires presence. It demands that you step out of the idea world and put your feet on the ground. To dare is to put alchemy into motion. It's the moment theory becomes life, where the word becomes flesh, where the invisible starts to take form. And no, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need all the answers, or all the resources, or all the skills. Boldness doesn't wait for everything to be ready. It's the very force that creates the path as it walks. It's what opens trails where there were only walls. It's what turns chaos into art, limits into momentum. In Hermetic tradition, this is crystal clear. The universe doesn't respond to talk. It responds to action, to risk, to energy set in motion. The law of vibration doesn't activate just with intention. It vibrates through action. It's in the step that the ground appears. It's in the leap that the wings unfold. To dare isn't about showing off. It's about honoring yourself. It's doing what your spirit has already decided, even when your personality is full of doubts. It's saying yes to your soul, yes to what's pulsing inside, even if no one else gets it, even if no one approves. It's having the courage to embody your truth, even if it's still just a whisper. In alchemy, this is the moment when the fire starts to boil, when the raw material begins to stir inside the Athena, the phase when the heat of will starts to transform what's dense, rigid, hardened. And that heat comes from boldness, from action, from practice. It doesn't matter if the ritual is small, if the gesture is simple. Lighting a candle with intention can be more powerful than an entire library of unused theory. Writing one real sentence on paper can be more transformative than repeating empty formulas. Putting the body into motion is sealing an energetic contract with the unseen. To dare is to put yourself in the game. It's recognizing that you're never going to feel fully ready. That fear won't magically disappear, but that there's something inside you stronger than it, and that something needs to be lived. To keep silent, the forgotten art of protecting the sacred. And it's exactly at this point in the journey, when movement has already begun, when the fire is already lit, that the final key appears, the most subtle, the most overlooked, and maybe, because of that, the most powerful: to keep silent. Silence is not omission. It's not passivity. It's not the absence of action. Silence is conscious containment. It's vibrational maturity. It's when you understand that not everything sacred should be exposed, that not every process needs to be shared, that there are moments when silence is more transformative than 1,000 words, because silence, on the spiritual path, is not emptiness. It is a vessel. The alchemist knows that every internal process is fragile in its early stages, like a newly planted seed. If you expose it too much, it won't sprout. If you talk too much, you scatter energy. If you share it with someone who doesn't understand, you hand your creation over to the judgment of those who can't see. And that's where many get lost. They want to share, explain, convince, prove. But what's still maturing inside you needs protection, not exposure. Silence preserves the fire. It keeps the heat inside the hermetic vessel. It's no coincidence that ancient occultists called this practice initiatory silence, because silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's a field of energetic concentration. It's where power accumulates, where magic solidifies before it manifests. Speaking too soon is like opening the oven before the bread is done. You miss the moment. You cool the process. In Hermeticism, this silence is reverence. It's respect for the intelligence of the unseen. Hermes Trismegistus was called thrice great because he knew, among other things, when to speak and when to stay silent. The word holds power, but silence holds wisdom, and only those who've learned to contain can truly create. And it's not just about keeping your plans or your spiritual practices to yourself. It's about silencing the noise of the mind, silencing the need for validation, silencing the impulse to justify every step you take. There's a freedom that only silence can offer. The freedom to be whole, even without being acknowledged. The freedom to care for your light without needing anyone else to see it, yet. In alchemy, silence is the final stage before manifestation. It's when the matter has already been worked, transmuted, heated, dissolved, and now it needs to rest, to settle, to integrate. Silence here is not the end. It's the space where the new begins to take form. It's in the silence that the philosopher's gold thickens. It's in the silence that the spirit finds its home. Do you see it? Silence isn't hiding. It's preservation. It's choosing the right moment to reveal. It's understanding that the sacred has rhythm, has timing, has layers, and that not everything real needs to be said, because some things only bloom in the dark. And true power is often made in silence. And in the moment when everything seems to go quiet, when you've already walked the inner paths of knowing, willing, and daring, when you've learned to keep silent, to protect what's being formed, something subtle begins to happen. A strange but familiar feeling, as if you've been here before, as if the journey, instead of taking you to a final destination, is bringing you back. But not to the same point, to a higher one, as if time were circular, not linear, as if the soul were dancing in a spiral. It's in this exact moment that you understand what the ancient masters have always known. True wisdom isn't linear. It moves in cycles, in turns that seem like repetition, but are actually expansion. And it's in this living cycle that the four verbs reveal themselves as sacred gears of a single mechanism. They're not steps on a ladder. They are directions on a wheel that spins within you. Because deep silence doesn't lead to an end. It brings you back to the beginning. But now, the knowing that arises isn't theoretical or mental or repeated. It's embodied. It's born from fertile silence, from the space where noise has faded and listening has bloomed. It's the kind of knowing that doesn't need to be searched for. It simply arises. It emerges as clean intuition, as clear perception, as a calm presence that observes without judgment. This new knowing is different from the first. It doesn't want to prove anything. It's not in a rush for answers. It doesn't feed on urgency. It simply observes, perceives, integrates, and because it's quieter, it's more truthful. It doesn't need to defend itself. And because of that, it sparks a new wanting. But this time, it's no longer a wanting driven by desire or impulse. It's a calm wanting, a wanting that comes from the inner certainty that there is something that needs to be born, and that it's ready. And when this new wanting settles in, it doesn't come alone. It carries with it the renewed energy of action. But now, boldness is no longer a leap into the unknown. It's a conscious step, supported by past experience, guided by a will that's already been refined, and illuminated by a knowing that came from silence. Action is no longer noise. It becomes a precise gesture, an aligned movement, an intelligent manifestation. The inner alchemy starts to boil again. The soul's matter, which has already been through fire, which has already faced chaos, now organizes itself on another level. And soon, almost naturally, the cycle calls for another pause, a new silence, a new moment to keep still. But now not as an interruption, rather as continuity, as if it were the soul's own breathing. Inhale, act, exhale, retreat. And in this hidden rhythm, consciousness expands. No breakdowns, no shortcuts, only presence. This is where the symbol of the serpent starts to make sense. The ancient, mysterious image of the serpent eating its own tail. Ouroboros, the eternal return. The image that represents one of the greatest secrets of the Hermetic tradition. Everything is connected, everything recycles, everything transforms to be reborn with more truth. The serpent doesn't destroy itself by consuming itself. It perpetuates. It reinvents. This cycle isn't a prison, it's evolution. Each turn of the serpent is a deeper layer of yourself being accessed. What once looked like repetition now reveals itself as maturation. The soul begins to learn its own language. The seeker starts to recognize the signs with more sensitivity. Old lessons return, but under new light. The same symbol, now with different meaning. The same silence, now with more presence. The same will, but with more direction. And it's in this rhythm of return and rebirth that the great work happens. Not as a sudden miracle, but as a constant refinement. A cycle that spins not to return to the starting point, but to elevate it. To make the beginning a new level. To make the invisible clearer and clearer. To make the sacred more and more intimate. The time of courage, acting in the now. The archetypal union of four forces, the man, the lion, the ox, and the eagle. Four creatures that weren't chosen randomly. Each one represents one of the verbs. Each one holds a secret of the human soul. They are the faces of the same consciousness, the pillars that support the throne of inner sovereignty. The human face is to know. Intelligence, reflection, the search for meaning. The eagle's wings are to will. Vision that sees beyond mountains, the desire to reach higher. The lion's paws are to dare. Raw courage, the roar that breaks through fear. And the ox's body is to keep silent. Stability, silent patience, the strength that supports without haste. Together, these figures form more than a riddle. They form the portrait of human nature being educated by the light of spirit. Because true spirituality doesn't deny instinct, doesn't repress the flesh, doesn't judge the animal that lives in us. It transforms, it integrates, it guides the beast toward the sky without ripping it from the earth. The beast doesn't need to be destroyed, it needs to be divinized. And that is living alchemy. It's looking inward with brutal honesty, seeing the anger, the desire, the vanity, the fear, and not running away, but also not giving in. It's dialoguing with each of these forces and saying, now you serve consciousness. Now you walk with me. That's what transforms an ordinary human into a true mage. They've learned to tame their own monsters. Not to hide them, but to convert them into creative power. And when you recognize the Sphinx within yourself, something changes. The inner world realigns. What was once chaos becomes structure. You start to feel like you have a foundation, that you can trust what you're feeling, that you no longer need to split yourself between who you are inside and who you try to appear to be on the outside. The beast becomes a temple, and it's in that temple that true action becomes possible. Because there's no more time to wait. Have you noticed? How many times have you postponed what you knew you needed to do? Waiting for the right day, the right money, the right scenario, the right sign. But that day never comes. Because the mind will always create a new excuse. It will always say, now's not the time. This is missing. That is missing. But the heart already knows. It's been ready for a long time. Magic happens in the now. Transformation starts with the simple. Spiritual life doesn't require castles or golden altars. It starts with what you have, with what you can do today. A conscious breath, a word left unsaid, a truthful glance, an honest choice. That's what creates the cracks in the old reality and makes space for the new to come in. If you can't make a paper ring work, you won't make a golden one work either. Because it's not the object that holds the power. It's the intention you put into it. It's the commitment you bring to the practice. There's no point in knowing everything, wanting everything, daring everything, if you don't allow yourself to act, and to act with what's in your hands right now. That's the difference between the dreamer and the doer. The time of courage is the present, and the present is the only real time. But there's something that still needs to be said, something you might have felt but never named. Because even after acting, even after living the cycle, even after touching the sacred, there's a space where everything goes silent again. And that silence isn't absence, it's presence. We're surrounded by noise, voices, opinions, demands. Every second, the world screams for you to get distracted, to hurry, to compare yourself. But the great work, it doesn't scream. It whispers. It reveals itself in layers. It requires space. It requires silence. True knowledge isn't in the excess of words. It's in the listening, in the discretion, in what you don't post, don't share, don't explain. Because certain truths only make sense when lived in secret. The soul has its own language, and not everything sacred should be exposed to shallow eyes. In Hermetic tradition, silence is the guardian of wisdom. It's not emptiness. It's the womb where the next creation is being gestated. It's where the world's chaos can't enter. It's where the spirit breathes. And if you've learned to keep silent, you've learned to protect yourself. You've learned to care for your light without needing to show it, because what's true doesn't need an audience. The soul's secret work doesn't show off. It reveals itself in the quality of presence, in the gaze that comforts, in the gesture that heals, in the choice that honors the path. And that work only blooms where there is fertile silence, where there's room for the mystery to remain a mystery. Because deep down, that's what holds everything together, a profound respect for the unseen. And before you go, there's something I need to show you. A special video has been prepared, made specifically for those who made it this far. A piece of content that will take everything you just discovered even deeper and show you, step by step, how to apply these alchemical codes in your real life. So don't leave just yet. Take a deep breath, look at the screen, and click on the video that's appearing. I'll meet you there, on the other side of the veil.